Joe back with another super cool astrology video, and I have to use my daughter's messy room today, so we'll just go with it. So I thought we'd talk about the conjunction between Venus and Uranus in Synastry and what this very exciting connection brings. So Venus is a lot about our evaluations, what we deem worth putting our time and our efforts into, because it is the natural ruler of the second house of what we are willing to work for, what we give value to. So what we esteem and what makes us feel good, our pleasure, our sensuality, and how we perceive love, how we want to love, and how we want to be loved. The style of that. What is our love language? Very much Venus. And so Uranus is that part of us that's very open, very willing, non-judgmental, progressive, isn't worried about the past, is open to possibilities because it knows the in. Being open-ended, that's where possibilities can arise from. It is a part of us that is not traditional in any way. It's willing to do what is unplanned or what is unknown. And so you have to look at the potentials in the rest of the synastry to have a better idea of how this conjunction is going to play out, because in itself it doesn't tell you much. When you read a lot of the descriptions for this, it's going to make it sound really scary. And it's almost always going to tell you, no, it's not going to last, or it can't last, or it's something that is a come and go. And not always, not always. You have to look at the entirety of the birth charts between the two people and then the synastry, and then see how this translates to the composite chart too. So this one is where it doesn't mean that you will or will not be together. And what it does indicate is a lot of non-judgment and a lot of lack of the critical responses that we usually have with our style of Venus. So the Venus person really leaves that off and responds to the Uranus person in a very rapid fashion. The Uranus person is going to have a real sense that they are being watched and observed and have a lot of the attention of the Venus person. And they respond in kind. So, Venus, any planet associated with anybody's Uranus, any planet, is going to see that as an accepting and non-judgmental place to be. So because Uranus in us is not like Saturn, where we're afraid of critical or judgmental responses. We just have this natural, they're just going to be okay with that and accept me. And so Uranus, this is why I like to really point out the good things, the bonuses that can come into relationships, romantic relationships, when we have a high degree of Uranus going on. Most of us are looking for the Pluto. That is not where we find the ability to develop the characteristics that can lead us to understanding what true love is. Uranus just naturally has that door open. And so it's something that is always going to be an accepting influence between two people. So there's no walls. So the Venus person, their love, their sense of sensuality, their sense of attraction develops very rapidly towards the Uranus person, because the usual formalities are just dispensed with, and they get to the business of loving very quickly. So this is why you see this in affairs a lot, and in relationships where we don't necessarily have the blessing to be together, or we don't, it's unconventional, or it's something that, you know, we find ourselves being, you know, attracted to the milkman or something. We don't know, you know, where did this come from? A lot of times this conjunction can be responsible for that, because the Venus person, you know, can find themselves, you know, like not even understanding why they can be so attracted to this person. Why is this person taking their attention to this degree? And it's because when Venus hooks into Uranus, it wants a part of that. It knows that in this is the possibility of true love. Now, we may not be consciously thinking that, but this is the unconscious response that we're having. You know, Uranus is where we let it all hang out, and Venus wants to be a part of that. It wants to join the party. And so this is one that, you know, typically romances begin very quickly. It doesn't mean that they are going to end or cool off very quickly. This doesn't mean that. You'll almost always find that in cookbook descriptions, that it begins and ends quickly. Not necessarily. We may have other stuff going on. We may have Moon Mars going on where we just cannot quit each other. We may have some Venus Pluto going on where we're really hooked into each other in an extremely attachment, hellish based way. But to us, this is passion, baby, and we're going to fight for that. Well, you know, you have to look at everything, because we may have this and then, you know, some other stuff. So it's one where the connection is just extremely rapid and extremely natural. And so it's an aspect where, you know, just if you just keep in mind that the Venus person's usual habits of evaluation are done away with or are rapidly gone through, that will give you a really good idea of how this one works. And now, a lot of times, those evaluations or judgments that we make about the Uranus person on the Venus person's level are really off. They're very, very wrong, because we're hooked into them. Our love nature is hooked into them, where they are very free and where they are accepting, and we can kind of extrapolate those characteristics to other areas of their character that may not be there. Now, they may not. Our evaluation process is so glossed over that the other person, we just give them a very, very wide berth, a lot of understanding. It's not like Neptune, where we can smell something is off, but we don't want to know that. Or we're just projecting all of our stuff onto them, and we're not even seeing them as they are, who they are. We're just loving this fantasy that we've made up. Uranus is not like that. We see what's there, but we don't give a lot of credence to formalities or through the vetting process that we need to go through. So this is very much like when somebody applies for a job and you're interviewing them, and you go through that process of seeing what they're about, seeing if they're a good fit, looking into the background, seeing what's, you know, gone on there, asking questions, consulting with the rest of the crew, and, you know, seeing what is their opinion. Is this going to be a good fit? No. When we have this conjunction, we go through the Venus is the employer, and Uranus is the one who's applying. And Venus, you know, we flip through the applications, we see one that looks really good, and we go out into the hallway, see, wow, you know, this looks great, you know, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at you, you're hired, man, come in. This is great that we found somebody so quickly, and that it was just such a great fit, and wow, you know, you're going to just love it here, and you're the best employee I've ever had. An hour later, well, you know, that evaluation may or may not be true, and that may or may not work out in the long run. So we're attracted to each other for a reason, because the style is, because this is a conjunction, is similar. Just like when you apply for a job, you generally apply for something that you want to work at. And so there is a similarity there. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be completely personally right for that job. And that's the thing about Venus-Uranus stuff, is that personal vetting process is generally done away with. And sometimes this can be really good because it breaks down a lot of those walls and those processes that can keep us from getting to know somebody, or from dragging our feet, or some Venus-Uranus can be really good, and sometimes this can be a lovely combination into otherwise sort of stodgy Saturnian charts. They can use this. But if you're highly Uranian on your own, or if you have a lot of Uranus-Venus going on and you find this one, you may find also that it can show up as negative because the rushing in process can just be too much and can be, it seems right at the time because Uranus has a natural effect on us. But, once we start settling down into the routine of relationship, that's when this conjunction or other difficulties between Venus and Uranus show up, because Uranus is not about routine. And when routine comes in, that's when these problems can arise. So it has a huge zinging effect in the beginning, and then it has kind of this aftertaste when we kind of settle down into the habits of life and the mundane living together. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, please subscribe to my channel. You can find me on the internet at truthandaspectastrology.com. Yes, I do private consultation. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram at Truth and Aspect Astrology, and I'll be back super soon. More super cool videos. Bye.